Hello, I'm Karen Giannoni. Welcome to BBC World News today. The ugliest US presidential debate in history. Now the most senior Republican in the country says he won't campaign with Donald Trump. No handshake, no pleasantries, just harsh words and accusations from both sides.
Bill Clinton was abusive to women. Hillary Clinton attacked those same women.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Because you'd be in jail.
We'll look at where the debate and its fallout have left the presidential hopefuls. Also ahead, how suspicious friends brought to an end a huge police manhunt in Germany by tying up a suspected Islamic State militant. Samsung is reported to have stopped production of its Note 7 phone after more handsets caught fire despite modifications to make them safe. And a special message for a 105th birthday to the trailblazing reporter who broke the news that the Second World War had begun. Well, it was possibly the most acrimonious presidential debate ever seen on American TV. For an hour and a half, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton tore into one another. In particular, Mr. Trump put up a robust defense of his vulgar comments about women, which were recorded a decade ago but only made public in the last few days. But he's lost another key ally, with the most senior Republican, Paul Ryan, saying he won't spend any more time defending his party's candidate for the White House. Mr. Trump has told Mr. Ryan to spend his time on jobs and immigration rather than fighting the Republican nominee. Here's our North America editor, John Sopel.
They walked out smiling, but as they drew closer, the awkwardness and tension were evident. No handshakes, just a wary stare. And very quickly, it was onto the now infamous comments from Trump a decade ago about molesting women.
This was locker room talk. I'm not proud of it. I apologize to my family. I apologize to the American people.
Have you ever done those things?
Have respect for me. And I will tell you, no, I have not.
But Hillary Clinton sought to broaden the attack on his suitability for office.
And he has said that the video doesn't represent who he is. But I think it's clear to anyone who heard it that it represents exactly who he is. But it's not only women, and it's not only this video that raises questions about his fitness to be our president, because he has also targeted immigrants, African Americans, Latinos, people with disabilities, POWs, Muslims, and so many others.
And this is where it got nasty and dirty. Donald Trump chose attack as the best form of defence. He'd brought with him women who'd previously claimed to have been sexually assaulted by Bill Clinton. And Mr. Trump didn't hold back.
If you look at Bill Clinton, far worse, minor words, and his was action. His was what he's done to women. There's never been anybody in the history of politics in this nation that's been so abusive to women. Hillary Clinton attacked those same women and attack them viciously.
When I hear something like that, I am reminded of what my friend Michelle Obama advised us all. When they go low, you go high.
Throughout the debate, Donald Trump moved nervously around the stage, sometimes as though he was stalking her, often just lurking in the background as an intimidating presence. His most effective attack was over her use of a private email server. And then this extraordinary statement.
If I win, I am going to instruct my Attorney General to get a special prosecutor to look into your situation.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Because you'd be in jail.
And then the most surreal end to this most poisonous debate.
Would either of you name one positive thing that you respect in one another?
Look, I respect his children. His children are incredibly able and devoted, and I think that says a lot about Donald.
I will say this about Hillary. She doesn't quit. She doesn't give up. I respect that. I tell it like it is.
This was a brutal and savage 90 minutes. Donald Trump had to prove that he could move beyond the sex scandal tape that has so rocked the Republican Party. He probably achieved that. He's down, but he's not yet out.
There was a tepid handshake at the end, but there's no love lost between the two of them, and no easing of the animosity either between Mr. Trump and the deeply unhappy Republican Party leadership. John Sopel, BBC News, St. Louis, Missouri.
Well, this, more than any other US presidential election in history, is a battle being fought on social media as much as it is on television. According to Twitter, this was the most tweeted debate ever, more than 17 million tweets posted. Mr. Trump proved a more popular subject than Mrs. Clinton, with almost twice as many tweets about him, although the research doesn't say if they were favourable or not. But despite that, Mrs. Clinton still won the battle to attract more followers on Twitter. And as for who might have won the debate itself, this poll carried out by ORC for CNN gives it to Hillary Clinton by 57 to 34. Now, it might seem like a good performance, but after the first debate, the same poll gave her an even bigger margin of victory, 62 to 27. We'll have the very latest from our correspondent in the US in just a moment. But first, here's what some of the people who watched thought of the candidates' performances.
He's not the greatest debater. You know, it's not his strength. But I thought he did well, and he landed some shots, and I like the zingers.
Every time Hillary Clinton tried to bring up the tape that unfortunately came out a day or two ago, he just reminded her, hey, your husband has a track record that far exceeds anything I've ever said. So I think he was right in doing that, because if she's going to attack him on just some, childish little comments, and I went to an all-boys Catholic high school, I know of comments like that. It's a guy thing, okay? She has to just get over it.
I don't like it, but, I don't like the email thing either, so, with Hillary Clinton. So it's like, pick your poison.
It's ridiculous, and he's just saying things that he shouldn't. If you want to become a president, you have to respect females, and if you're not able to do that, then how could you become a president?
She was very clear about Donald Trump's actual verbiage and that it wasn't true. Check the facts.
Really, I think it went similar to like the first debate. The rhetoric kind of went way off base, and I still really have no idea who I want to vote for.
You want someone that's very strong, very passionate. I think that she just says what people want and want to hear, and so does Donald Trump. But you want someone to be genuine, authentic, and I don't think either of the candidates are like that.
Just a little of that reaction. Let's go live to Washington and our correspondent Aleem Makbul. Aleem, first of all, the political fallout. How much of a blow is it that the most senior Republican, Paul Ryan, says he won't be spending any time defending Donald Trump up until election date?
Yeah, on the face of it, it's extremely damaging. This is the most senior elected Republican saying to other Republicans, down-ticket Republicans, those fighting for seats in Congress, go save yourselves, do whatever it takes. And if that means disassociating yourself from Donald Trump, then do it. And he is saying that he himself will not spend time for the rest of this campaign defending Donald Trump, but will instead be trying to ensure, in his words, that Hillary Clinton doesn't get a blank check, which sounds like he's conceding victory already to Hillary Clinton. So it looks very damaging, but you have to remember that a lot of those people who are voting for Donald Trump, and we've met a lot of them over the last year or so right across this country, are going to vote against the establishment. And they're talking about the Republican establishment almost as much as they are about Hillary Clinton. And so in terms of Donald Trump's base, this might even help. So he can say, you see, even the establishment within our own party is against us all, but stick with me, and with people power, we'll turn things around. But of course, for those undecided voters, those in the middle, this is just another indication that even people in his own party think that Donald Trump is a liability. But he had that right through the Republican primary process, and which got him to this candidacy, of course, and it didn't harm him then.
And in terms of the public reaction, Aleem, the fact that Donald Trump is still standing after that video that emerged just before the weekend is seen as quite an accomplishment in itself.
Oh, absolutely. ahead of this debate, there was all kinds of talk about the fact that Donald Trump could implode somehow, but he didn't. It was an extraordinary and fairly depressing, in some parts, start to the debate with these brutal blows that he was laying, and some of those voters you heard describe them as just that, laying blows on Hillary Clinton. That's what it felt like at some points. But also Hillary Clinton missed opportunities later in the debate to land that sort of fatal blow as well. And he did very well as what he's done right through this, which is get his message across that, that whatever is wrong with America today is because of the establishment in this country and people like Hillary Clinton. He talked a lot about her untrustworthiness, and that kind of message is resonating with people, and that's why he's still where he is today. But Hillary Clinton, it has to be said, did hold her ground, and we saw through the Republican debates that the likes of Jeb Bush, Marco Rubio were unable to do that. So it is still all very much in the balance, but he is certainly holding his own.
OK, Aleem, thank you very much for now. Aleem Maqbool in Washington, and both candidates will be out on the campaign trail straight away over the next few hours. Let's go to Germany, where a two-day manhunt for a suspected Islamist militant has come to an end after he was apparently tied up by some Syrian refugees when he tried to take shelter in their apartment. Jaber al-Bakr, a Syrian national, was detained in the eastern city of Leipzig. Police had begun searching for him after finding bomb-making equipment. Jenny Hill reports.
Even the German police admit they're relieved to have caught Jaber al-Bakr. The 22-year-old who arrived in Germany as an asylum seeker last year had been on the run ever since police raided a flat in the eastern town of Chemnitz on Saturday. There they found hundreds of grams of what is being described as highly dangerous explosive material, together with fuses and bits of metal. It's yet to be officially analysed, but police say their specialists on site believe it to be a substance known as TATP, which is the explosive used by the Paris and Brussels attackers. Now, the police believe that Jaber al-Bakr was perhaps in the process of putting together some sort of suicide vest. They actually think he may have neared completion. They also believe he has links with IS. Despite, though, that European manhunt, which went on for well over 24 hours, police admitted today that actually al-Bakr was apprehended by some Syrian refugees. It's thought he may have approached them at Leipzig railway station, and there are questions over how he could have been wandering around such a public place amid such tight security. One way or another, those Syrian refugees took him back to their flat. When they realised who he was, they tied him up. One of the refugees then went to the police station with a mobile phone picture of al-Bakr and said to the officers there, "I think we might have your man. You might want to come and pick him up." Could be rather embarrassing for the police. You sense that this operation didn't go quite as well as the security services would have liked it to. Nevertheless, they are claiming this arrest as evidence that they can manage the IS terror threat against Germany, that they can, in effect, keep the country safe.
Jenny Hill. A look at some of the day's other news stories. In Afghanistan, Taliban forces are mounting an assault on Lashkargah, capital of the strategically important province of Helmand. Reports suggest militants are now within a few kilometres of the governor's compound, although a provincial spokesman denied that areas close to the city centre were being fought over. Police in southern India are investigating the family of a 13-year-old girl who died after fasting for more than 2 months. The schoolgirl, Aradhana Samdariya, who lived in Hyderabad, only drank water in the early stages of the religious fast. Her family's denied forcing her to take part. The Nobel Prize for Economics has been won by the British-born Oliver Hart and Bent Holmstrom of Finland, seen here. The judges said their work in contract theory helped develop policies for executive pay. The British government's been warned that failure to strike a good deal over leaving the European Union could mean big price increases for everyday goods. The British Retail Consortium, the industry trade body, says reverting to World Trade Organization rules could result in tariffs of up to 27%. And it says years of deflation could mean shops would struggle to absorb higher import costs. More from our business editor, Simon Jack.
The retail industry presented its post-Brexit stall today.
As the biggest importer of goods in the UK, the sector is worried costs could rise when we leave the EU.
As we import goods into this country, coming from the EU or from other countries where there are trade deals, those at the moment are all tariff-free. And if, as part of the exit from the EU, we have new tariffs, then that will put upward pressure on prices for consumers.
Once outside, the UK might have to fall back on its membership of the World Trade Organization, which comes with its own rulebook. Currently, meat moves between the EU and UK tariff-free. WTO rules impose tariffs of up to 40%. Chilean wine flows freely. Outside the EU, it's 14% on top. But clothes from India arrive in the EU with 12% added. Under special rules for developing countries, we could opt to do a deal reducing that.
It's too soon to know exactly what, if any, tariffs will be imposed on imports coming into places like Liverpool. The WTO rules are not the government's preferred option, but they are, of course, a possibility. But one thing seems certain: shoppers may have to get used to higher prices, if only because of the fall in the value of the pound, which makes imports coming here from the US and from Europe that bit more expensive.
Here in Birkenhead, traders and shoppers seem convinced the EU wouldn't want to make life more difficult.
They export more to us than we buy off them, so therefore they're going to want to do the deals as much as we do.
We buy a lot of flowers, so if they want to put tariffs on our cars, we'll put tariffs on their flowers. We won't sell their flowers, we'll buy English flowers instead.
I think it definitely wasn't made obvious to the public that, you know, the prices of daily things or gifts, etc. would go up. But I think it should have been something everyone should have considered, definitely.
There is another cloud appearing in consumer skies. Petrol retailers warned today a 5p a litre hike in prices was imminent, thanks again to pound weakness. Deal or no deal, prices look likely to rise. Simon Jack, BBC News, Merseyside.
The British Home Secretary Amber Rudd says she expects to receive a list of children living in the camp in northern France known as the Jungle later this week. Ms Rudd says the details will come from the French government and that once she has the names, she expects any children in the camp who want to come to the UK to make the journey within days. France is expected to close the camp in Calais before the end of this month. The United Nations is calling for a massive international response to help Haiti in the wake of Hurricane Matthew. It's appealing for $120 million for immediate life-saving assistance for people in southwestern Haiti, which took a direct hit. The money will go to provide food, clean drinking water and shelter to the most vulnerable. There's also concern about an increase in cases of cholera, which spread through contaminated water. This is what the UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon had to say.
Hundreds have died. At least 1.4 million people need assistance at this time. Some towns and villages have been almost wiped off the map. Crops and food reserves have been destroyed. At least 300 schools have been damaged. These numbers and needs are growing as more affected areas are reached. Tensions are already mounting as people await help. A massive response is required.
South Africa is grappling with ongoing student protests, which have led to many universities being closed for nearly a month now. Under the hashtag Fees Must Fall, students are demanding free university education for all. But the demonstrations have taken a violent turn, as Nomsa Maseko reports from the University of the Witwatersrand in Johannesburg.
There's been a tense standoff between riot police and students here at Witwatersrand University. The students have told us that they are angry that a major meeting, which was supposed to have been held on Friday, was cancelled. They say that the Vice-Chancellor of the university did not inform them that that meeting was going to be postponed. They grew impatient, started throwing stones at private security and also police, who then retaliated with stun grenades, tear gas and rubber bullets. The standoff here does not seem that it's going to be resolved anytime soon, because both sides are digging their heels in.
Now, you may remember the smartphone giant Samsung was forced to issue a recall of its Galaxy Note 7 phone last month after complaints of faulty batteries catching fire. Now, reports that it's had to stop production of the phone after claims that the replacements were also starting to emit smoke, like the two damaged handsets you can see here. Our correspondent Steve Evans sends this report from Seoul in Samsung's home country, South Korea.
This is the heart of Samsung country. Everybody here, or most people anyway, have Samsung phones. Some people use them to phone conventionally. Some people use them for video selfies like I am now. The Galaxy Note 7 is still being advertised here, but that's clearly redundant because Samsung has said that it's rescheduling production. It admits there's a problem, it wants to sort out the safety problem. If there's one thing you don't do when you're a company, and that is recall a product, reissue it as safe, and then have to sort out problems again. So there's clearly a problem for Samsung. The other difficulty for Samsung is the iPhone 7. Time has been lost by Samsung in this great battle of the smartphones. What started out as a bit of a glitch with a launch is now turning into the danger, the potential for a real corporate disaster.
Steve Evans there in Seoul reporting from his phone. Now, you may not have heard of Claire Hollingworth, but her work as a journalist 8 decades ago is viewed by many as being as important as the events upon which she reported. She broke the news of the start of the Second World War and also helped refugees from Eastern Europe to flee from the tyranny of the Nazis. Today, she's celebrating her 105th birthday, and she's received a very special message from one of the children she helped escape to the UK. Daniela Ralph has the story.
105 years old is something to celebrate.
Happy birthday, dear Claire.
Claire Hollingworth now lives in Hong Kong, where today friends and family threw a party for her.
Yes.
She was a member of an exclusive group in a man's world, a female war correspondent. It was this young, ambitious woman who broke one of the biggest stories ever, the outbreak of the Second World War. She sent the story to the Daily Telegraph, having seen German tanks lined up on the Polish border.
This is the national programme from London. Germany has invaded Poland and has bombed many towns.
I'm really passionately interested in war, and if one is passionately interested in war, one can't help like being in it. I enjoy every moment.
But she had a secret. Her family only discovered paperwork about it in recent years. Claire Hollingworth helped thousands of refugees escape the Nazi regime for a new life in Britain. It was high risk. Margot Stania was one of those she helped. Then she was just 4 years old. She's now 81. She still has her travel papers with Claire Hollingworth's name on.
I came to England in 1939.
The two women have never met, never even spoken. But Margot recorded this video message, which was played today at Claire's birthday party.
All I can say is thank you to Claire again and again and again. I think of you a lot to the end of my life, how well you've done for me and for my children who are still here. Thank you very much.
Someone who has done truly good things for the world.
Age, frailty and distance mean the two women won't ever meet now. But at 105 years old, Claire Hollingworth has finally had a personal thank you from someone whose life she saved. Daniela Ralph, BBC News.
Let's return to the US presidential debate. One aspect of it in particular, the run-up to the event, was overshadowed by the emergence of that tape of Donald Trump recorded a decade ago when he made obscene remarks about women and how a man in his position could treat them. The issue, of course, came up in the debate. Here's how he responded.
This was locker room talk. I'm not proud of it. I apologize to my family. I apologize to the American people. Certainly I'm not proud of it. But this is locker room talk.
So, locker room talk, the sort of thing a group of men might say without really meaning it while trying to impress other men. Well, while Mr. Trump may have satisfied some of his critics, he's angered a new group in society, professional athletes. Some of them are taking his remarks rather personally. Chris Conley, who plays American football for the Kansas City Chiefs, says he works in a locker room and he doesn't talk like that. He adds that in his experience, while men do talk about women, they don't do it in the way Mr. Trump did. And CJ McCollum, who plays for the Portland Trail Blazers basketball team, says he's not heard language like that where he works. Now, Mr. Trump hasn't reacted to that reaction to his locker room comment on Twitter or anywhere else yet. We'll keep an eye on how the debate has affected the race for the White House. We will leave you tonight with the latest BBC News poll of polls. As you can see, Hillary Clinton retains her advantage over Donald Trump, with her support appearing to have consolidated itself in the upper 40s, while her Republican rivals' numbers are far more volatile. Now, if you want to look at that poll tracker yourself over several different timescales, just log on to bbc.com/news, then just click through to our special section on the US presidential election. And don't forget, you can get in touch with us and some of the team on Twitter about any of our stories. I'm at Karen BBC. There's also a BBC News Facebook page too. Lots there to look at about our programmes and lots of analysis on all our stories. Thanks for watching.